and welcome to the new year and the new series of Load of Balls. It's March time, so as I said in the tweet I sent out, that football seems to be on the horizon again, and it's brilliant to give that wee bit of hope, and hopefully we get on the fields as soon as possible. But there's no better man to be starting off the new series than Mr. Saul himself, Dr. Eddie Harney. Eddie, you kept a promise to me. You said you would come on the show if Saul won the championship. So fair play to you. You're a man of your word.
You're an awful man to put people under duress, John. You know, I'm a man of my word, and I'd never let you down. But look, great circumstances. You know, it was a twofold situation. You said, look, if we can win the championship, would you come on? And I suppose I was confident that we had the tools to do that. Very strong management team overall, yourself included. Obviously, Ronan taking the lead, and we were very fortunate to have a great group there. And I would see that one of the key things was that the management was very much at one in the group with the players and the support in terms of the committee. And as you know, with all successful teams, that unity is crucial. Mm-hmm. So delighted with last year, and as I say, delighted to come on board and have a chat with you.
I suppose, Eddie, and I hope Ronan doesn't mind me saying this, that you're a big part of the success that we had was the lack of injuries, and especially the soft tissue injuries. I know you had a massive part in the prehab work with the boys. How did you come about with that program, and what was it based on?
Well, to be honest with you, a few years ago, when I was involved with the county team, there was a number of us in terms of team doctors and physios had detected that there was a couple of sort of rag nail injuries, seemed to be recurrent soft tissue injuries, and we actually engaged with the two fairly high profile physios from Jordanstown, Phil Glasgow and Chris McNichol. They really took the lead in it with the help of others, and we decided as a group that we needed to do something to look in terms of burnout of players, overuse injuries, and injury avoidance. And basically, the evidence that was out there was with the FIFA 11 plus. Some people will be aware of in soccer, and the GAA adopt that, a GAA 15 model, and the Ulster Council had their own version of that in terms of Activate. And I say it was put together by Sinai. Support from Sinai was excellent, and it was great to see medical professionals from the 9 counties put their heads together for what was a common goal. And remarkably, it seemed to work. The type of injuries that we were particularly concerned about in terms of pelvic overload injuries, and particularly in young players, and that has definitely seen an increase. It was well marketed as well. I think they got Michael Murphy to actually display it, and it was done very professionally by the Sinai team. So I had done that, and to be honest, we had introduced it in Saul a few years ago, and with the lockdown last year, it was an opportunity when people were training on their own, simple exercises to do on their own, and it's not rocket science. It's not any great secret. It's there on the Ulster Council website, and there's a lot of stuff the Ulster Council do that we would tap into. And look, there seemed to be a good response from the players for it. It was a very small part of the package, I would say, but it probably contributed to get people have awareness of injury prevention.
Yeah,
and how
it's tough, Eddie, for players as well, to buy into it, because yourself, like, doing the same repetitive things, but whenever you're getting them out there and you notice the number of injuries going down, the more time you play, you're on the training field, the more time you're playing matches with no injuries. Like, that's what everybody's hoping for as a management team and as a club.
Well, the one thing about it is it's a model that was, as I say, put across by Ulster Council, and we found the compliance quite good. I'd say most of our players are listening to me for the guts of 15, 20 years. And when I was taking them through them, if they were able to listen to me taking them through it, it must have been a fairly easy process, to be honest with you. And as I say, wouldn't overcook it. It's all part of the picture. But what I like about it is the functionality of it. A lot of people, and you know yourself, John, from your own experience, a lot of people forget about the importance of sports specificity, whatever way you pronounce it. Specificity, that's it. Sports specificity is so important, you know, and to a certain extent, a lot of people, and it's been in vogue over the last 10 years, people get into the gym, but not doing exercises that are functional for Gaelic football. And I think the simplicity and the specificity of this Activate warm-up certainly was something that we were impressed by.
Yeah. You said there that you've been, like, these players now have been listening for 15, 20 years, maybe. You know, where did it all start, and how did it come about, you know, this particular group of young lads as well?
Look, if I'm honest, I'm a blow-in to Saul. I'm only here 50 years. They used to say you're not genuinely a Saul man unless you have 3 grannies buried in the graveyard, you know. But all joking aside, the beauty of Saul as a community is the vast majority of people in Saul are probably outsiders, for want of a better word. Saul is very much a rural community, but it encroaches a wee bit on the town of Downpatrick. And what we have is we've actually, the vast majority of our members are probably new to the parish. And I found that, albeit many, many years ago, that when you come in as an outsider, it's just a very welcoming community. I don't know whether you find that, John, but it just is there's just a welcoming nature to it. Whether it's the religious thing with the association with St. Patrick or whatever, you know, it's just something whereby the people are there, they're ingrained, they're very proud of the community, and they welcome everybody on board. And I think that's worked very, very well for us. When I came to Saul, my dad, who was a Mayo man, you know, he said, look, he introduced me to the likes of the Murphys and the Fitzsimons, you know, McGrath, the old guard, families like that, and you were very much embraced. And ironically, when we started off, we were really minnows at underage, but people maybe don't know this further afield, but we actually won an Ulster minor championship when I was a minor. And we're only one of, I think, 2. You can correct me, John, because I think Ross Trevor was the other one, possibly born more recently. That in that Ulster minor club championship, Saul were one of 3 down in win it. And what happened with that team was, you know, we had a lot of emigration, a lot of injuries, and the team sort of broke up. I suppose the difficulty with that team was it was like a once-off. Around that time, we people don't believe this, we won that Ulster Minor A title, and we had nobody on the down squad at all. And you know, there was, people can say it's paranoia or whatever, you know, but there was definitely a situation around about that time, like of the teams that were competing in the minor semi-final, club semi-final down that year, 3 out of the 4 of them were East Down. You know, and you can say we have a chip on our shoulder, right? I'm not an East Down man, I'm a Down man. But I do think that there's a perception here amongst clubs that, you know, that well, look, the county is something that's played down in Europe. And I think that's something that over the years has been put to one side. And I think we've developed that ethos. And there's no doubt in All Ireland winning teams, there was a spread of the county. And I don't say that as a bitchy East Down, man. We're not getting a fair crack at it. I don't mean that. What I'm trying to say is, if we're picking from only one area of the county, we're not going to be as strong. And that's why I'm particularly delighted up in North Down, the likes of Breda, St. Paul's, Carryduff, Darracross, all those clubs, and obviously our own clubs in the locality contributing to county teams. I definitely think that that's very important. And if you look back to the 60s and 91 and 94, there's a fair spread of the county. And I think that's the case again. You know, we're blessed with great venues and schools, the Abbey, And you know, even I know that the county's been very proactive in utilising the schools and promoting it in the schools. The Abbey Red High down this neck of the woods, you know, and tapping into that. But if you have your own venue and you're not worried about, you know, you're not worried about availability of pitches, and you're in a situation whereby, you know, if you after games, the team meetings before games, the prehab work, and certainly if you look at the plans for it, they've covered every base, and Ballykinner ticks an awful lot of boxes, to be honest. Yeah. You know,
there's great facilities down there in Saul as well, Eddie, and you know, there's been great people who've driven that as well. You know, the field is immaculate now. You know, how much work has gone into getting even the facilities up and top notch?
Well, look, we actually are blessed, to be quite honest with you. We've a secretary in our club, and he'll not want me to say this, but if there's a better secretary in Ireland, I'd like to see them. You know, Mark is also the head master of the local primary school, just has a good handle on things. He's a good, steady pair of hands. You know, puts his money where his mouth is in terms of putting the shoulder to the wheel. And there's a very strong family link there. His dad, I remember whenever I was playing, his dad would have been one of the managers of the teams and treasurer of the club, and then Mark and Catherine's our treasurer as well. You know, so there's good family link there, and the likes of those families, probably the people that maybe had the most influence on me when I was growing up was the Fitzsimons family. People will remember Columban and Martin, and those fellas would have gone the end of the earth for Saul GAC and still do. And we're very proud that they're still members of the committee, Columbans at the helm, and just had a great vision. And they had that self-belief, unapologetic self-belief, you know, that they thought, well, we've a right to be eating at the top table. And then they put in the hours, you know, and that, I suppose we've been blessed with that over the years, good, strong families. And I suppose one of the things, and I think of last year's success, and you'd be aware of this, John, we lost two very, very special people in our club, people that I was very proud to know. And I can't underestimate the sort of the influence that they had on the club in terms of their positivity, the way they conducted themselves. And Niall Laverty and Sonia Kinsella were people who inspired us, and certainly it was a very, very difficult time for the whole community, and particularly the Kinsella and Laverty's families over this period of time. And the way they handled themselves was an inspiration to us. Again, it homed in. There's many criticisms of the GAA, but we definitely saw that the fact that community spirit, the fact that we view ourselves as a family in Saul, was a great support. And at times, at the most important times, I think that's crucial. And that's definitely the biggest strength of GAA for me. We still miss them, but we're still inspired by them.
Yeah, no, and it's, you know, obviously Sonia's husband Philly's on the management team, and he's probably the most important man on the management team, as we found out a couple of times whenever he couldn't make the matches.
You know? I laugh at as you know, Ronan's a very straight talking, very inspirational character, very, very well organized. And he was the first to put his hand up and say, you know, you would know if Philly wasn't there, because just those wee things weren't done. And Philly actually was a great footballer himself. You know, he was an excellent goalkeeper back in the day. It's a bit of debate whether young Cahill is going to be a goalkeeper going forward. He's certainly a talented goalkeeper, but he's his eyes in an outfield position, and I'm not sure we should pigeonhole him too young. He could be in goals, could be outfield, and we'll see how it goes. And Aisling as well, she plays for the ladies team, so they're very much involved. And again, Philly's somebody who not only it's not only the hours he clocks in, it's that degree of knowledge, you know.
Yeah.
Which is so important.
No, it's like, you know, whenever I come down to Saul, the way I was welcomed out there was first class. And you know, I suppose it says a lot about the people as well. Obviously, me coming from Downpatrick, moving across, that the rivalry was sort of put aside because of, you know, trying to make Saul better, trying to get the results that we needed, and a special group of players too. Eddie, you know, you've three sons there who played on the team. How proud were you, whenever that final whistle went up in your eye?
Look, as you know, John, I wear my heart in my sleeve, and I've been proud of them anyway, and I'm proud of the three lads. They conduct themselves well. They're no angels like any of us, but they're very, very proud of their club. Love their Gaelic football. Put an awful lot of effort in. They really apply themselves very, very well in terms of their lifestyle, knuckling down, and they very much are prepared to do the hard yards. Now, people say, well, there was four of us involved. Obviously, I was involved from the medical point of view, and the three boys. But the most important, as you well know, the most important member of the family, football terms, is Connie. And I don't know how she puts up with us at times, to be honest. But she certainly keeps things going at home, and comes from a good South Derry GAA background, Newbridge, and she's many family members up that neck of the woods, and we're very interested. And I suppose after Down, Derry's always a county we keep an eye out for, and obviously Mayo with the links there.
I suppose that you must have great pride and all whenever you see the Saul players playing for their universities, their county now, boys playing under 17s, under 20s, under 21s, and even senior level now. You see Pierce there excelling at county level now. It's just tremendous for the recognition of a club as well.
I think everybody, a club never works in isolation. We're a small rural club and the eastern part of the county, but we see it as our responsibility to put the shoulder to the wheel for the county in whatever way it is. And that was probably instilled by the Fitzsimonses back in the day. Martin Fitzsimons played minor football for Down, and Martin was inspirational in terms of, saying to us, look, it's part and parcel. You go to the Down matches, Martin would organise buses to go to Croke Park when we were younger, and there was just that GAA ethos. And it was about the fact that you got to look to play for Down, and you know what? You got to help them. And Martin and Columban, up until last year before the lockdown, were still volunteering in Park Esler. So that's a culture that was always ingrained, back in the day. And it's good to see now more Saul players pulling on the red and black jersey, because I suppose we had that loyalty to Down whenever we weren't pulling on the red and black jersey as well. So it's nice to get to see those boys playing and doing so well. You just don't want them to be playing for Down. You want them to be playing well for Down. And we see that, and not only the male players and the female players as well. And as you know, John, we've a very sort of strong ethos of equality in the club, and our female section is something that has just been so strong over the years and has brought so much to the table. And they have big ambitions. A lot of work done over the last few years with Sonia and Frank Holland, and now there's a new managerial team with Ryan and Maeve and Gemma. So it's an overall picture. So we like to see all our teams doing well. We like to see people putting their shoulder to the wheel for the county. And the thing that's missing is county success, and it'll come there. And I know the likes of yourself, John, very keen to get involved in county teams, and that's the type of standard of people we need. We need people saying, yeah, I'm putting my hand up. I want to help with county teams, and to have almost like a coaching development pathway that people want to wear the red and black. I know Paddy O'Rourke, in terms of the Mourne Academy, no better man to actually drive people on and have a vision. And Paddy very much sees that it's not just about developing players, it's about developing coaches, and making sure that the best coaches in the county are actually helping out with county teams. And I think that's the future. I think if we can see success at underage, and people say, it's not about success, about developing players, but the fact of the matter is that in that 2010 team, that was on the back of there was Benny's minor team in '99. A number of them were still involved, and then you had the 2005. I think it was the minor and under 20. The minor team won the All Ireland. The under 21 team were in the All Ireland final, and then very unlucky to be beaten in the under 21 final of 2009. So 2010 didn't happen by accident. You know, there was a production line there. There was people who were used to playing on the biggest stage and winning on the biggest stage. And whereas you can't, I know at underage, you cannot just go down with a winning mentality at all times. It is about development, but it's also about developing that winning mentality, you know.
I suppose, Eddie, like, you know, whenever you were, I think you started being a doctor for Down in 2006, would that be correct?
That's right. I'll never forgive him. Ross Carr rang.
How did it come
me one night. He caught me on the hop. And I said, right, I'll do it for a year. And I'm still trying to get out of the job. So I eventually said to Sean this year, look, that's it. I can't do it anymore, because it is a big commitment. It's people, you know, maybe ringing you during the course of the day and organising different things. Now, we've been blessed with great professionals in terms of our physio, and you know, we from that point of view, we're very lucky. And I think back to years ago with Martin Walsh, who was just something else. Like Martin, I don't know how many years Martin was involved with Down teams, but I mean, certainly he was somebody who I would very much have looked up to. And actually the link with Martin, you still had Margaret King involved when I was involved, and Margaret from Castlewell, and just great social intelligence, knowing exactly what the right things to do were, and so we had those links, and then with a number of very strong physiotherapy teams over the years, and really we've been blessed with that. So they made the job very easy. They did a lot of the hard yards, and I suppose I maybe would have overseen things very much in the background, and particularly over the last couple of years. You know, but it's a big commitment, and certainly from a professional point of view, it's difficult at times. You know, it's not an easy challenge, but it's enjoyable. I've enjoyed working. I mean, Ross came in, and Ross is just he came in on the back. It wasn't an easy gig, because he came in on the back of Paddy O'Rourke, and Paddy O'Rourke, now in retrospect, when people are looking back, Paddy actually did very well. He probably was at the victim of maybe not having an awful lot of feeding underage teams coming in, and then Ross actually put structures in place and actually did a lot of work to change cultures, etc. A great setup behind him. I wouldn't mention them all, but the likes of Mickey Doyle, great people, you know, and knew the game inside out. And from the point of view, and you people like Ross and DJ asking you to go to the well, you're going to go to the well, you know, and they did a lot of work in terms of changing culture. They had Declan Musson in as a coach, who, you know, absolutely outstanding coach, and they actually did change the culture. And James McCarthy be the first to say that he benefited in 2010, and in 2010, interestingly, James is a very pragmatic man, very, very smart manager, and he actually made very few changes after 2009. So he came in, he had respect for where Ross had brought the boys to, and he didn't really bring in that, maybe a couple of extra personnel. I'm thinking the likes of Callum King. Kilcoo had won the championship in 2009. He brought a couple of Kilcoo boys in as well, and those boys fitted well into the setup, and probably were able to bring that team on a wee bit further. We all know, I think it was Ross did a lot of the groundwork in getting Marty back, Marty Clark, and it's just, look, Marty, we all know Marty Clark and what Marty brought to the table, just a delightful footballer, and you know, just something.
Yeah, just on that, what players impressed you that maybe, you know, changed your opinion whenever you seen them up close, and their work ethic or their ability even?
There's very few players didn't impress. That sounds like a I'm sort of shirking the question. It's a very good question. Very few players didn't impress me. I really think that being a county footballer is a hard task. Like, it's a hard task. So most of these boys are either students or working full time, and you're rushing home from work. You're always under pressure at work, and you're rushing home from work, and you're getting down to training. And then if you're in that elite level, a training session is going to be 3-4 hours. You're getting home at night. Maybe your mind is racing. You're not sleeping. It's a tough task. And we had some boys who were, maybe working down in Dublin and working on the sites down in Dublin, coming back and training for county. And then when you sat in the crowd and you saw some clown behind you slagging these boys off, like it just didn't make any sense to me, because if anybody gets to be a county footballer, first of all, they're a good footballer, and secondly, they've got a degree of application. In terms of people that really impressed me, I don't want to miss anybody out. I mean, for me, Benny is absolutely. Benny's going to, probably hit me over the head for this, but I've been watching Down football from, I think 1974 was my first Ulster final. But Benny, to me, he was exceptional. He was exceptional, and he was exceptional not just the way he conducted himself. Like, he just was somebody who was very, I would call it, low maintenance. He wasn't always looking to be injured. He was looking not to be injured. And he played, he had so much respect and passion for his own club. And he, when he stopped playing, he was looking to be involved in terms of managing even development squads. When that to me is just the type of player that you want to breed. So if Down are looking at a player of the future, you're looking for the Benny Coulters of this world. Other players that for me stand out, I think of Poley. Poley just extremely intelligent footballer, like, and again, low maintenance. If Poley was ringing you or contacting you about something, you knew it was, you raised your eyebrow and you said, look, we'll have to sort this man out.
I think he was scared one time you're going to stop him playing an Ulster final. Would that be right, or something?
I'll tell. I can't possibly say anything in case it be a breach of confidentiality, but let's say it was a challenging situation, and it was only to Poley's credit, because the man wanted to play. He wanted to play if he both legs hanging off, and his head hanging off as well. So, a great lad, as you know, and you look at that. Other people that stand out. I mean, Brendan McVeigh is a boy who stood out to me. You talk about fellas just want to play for Down and want to inspire. And, you meet Brendan down the street now, and we chat to you and have a bit of crack with you. He didn't take himself too seriously, but he reached the top of the game. Like Brendan McVeigh was the best goalkeeper in Down in 2010, and a few years either side of it. And again, didn't have an ego. Like, it's a bit like Benny. Poley the same. Not strutting about with an ego. They just wanted to play for Down, and they wanted to play for their club, and they wanted to actually give something back. And that's no disrespect to other players. Like, there's loads of other players.
Yeah.
And I've just taken those three as an example. I know playing wise, back in the day when we were playing, you look at different people, and people, again, you say about this having a belief and confidence, like, but boys say, oh, you were surprised that Down won the All-Ireland 91, and I wasn't a bit surprised. Like, if you played against James McCartan, at club football, and he'd be cracking away with you, and all of a sudden he'd be 10 yards away from you, nowhere near you, and just a steal about him. And what? Again, funny, you talk about those county players again, the crowd or somebody giving off. I remember a few years ago, there was a bit of skirmish in Saul, and Cathal Murray will not thank me for saying this. I'll not say what club it was, but it was the anniversary. It must have been 25 years or something after 94 or something, or 91. I don't know. But anyway, was a bit of a skirmish or whatever, and I'm not going to go into the rights or wrongs of it, but somebody else was given Cahill Dixie, and I just lost it, as sometimes I do, John, as you will.
Don't believe it, Eddie.
And I lost it, and I went to the fella, and I says, "You're frigging," I says, "these boys gave us some of the best days of our lives." I says, "Them boys knocked their pan in. They won us All Ireland. We were down in Croke Park watching down in an All Ireland final, and the pride involved in that, the social element of it, you know, the weekend down in Dublin, you know, those are massive memories, like massive memories." And these were boys. That's what I love about Gaelic football. These were boys who were in class with you. You know, I think of Neil Collins as this word. Neil Collins, one of the biggest. You talk about in the history of All Stars, one of the biggest disgraces. That man never won an All Star. You know, saving penalties in All Ireland final. Again, it just wasn't Neil's, you know, his goalkeeping. It was his intelligence, but it was his natural leadership. You know, again, no ego. Just get on with, love playing for Down and love winning for Down. So you boys like that, and you look back, you know them all, like the Mickey Lindens, these boys. So it wasn't a surprise that Paddy O'Rourke and Mickey Linden and Greg Blaney and Eamon, God rest him, won All Irelands. It wasn't a surprise at all.
Did you think that 2010 it was written in the stars that Down were going to win the All Ireland?
I'll be honest with you. There's two games probably in my time being involved. Two big games stand out for me. In 2008, we beat Tyrone and Uri after a replay.
Brilliant, yeah.
It was one of the best. And I mean, 94.
Eddie, wasn't it? It was something.
Oh, it was a packed Uri, and you know, I think of Sean Ogue running up and down the line. Sean Ogue obviously had everything organised and was just loving it, like, you know, because that was the first big match. Yeah, that was the first big match back in Uri, and Sean Ogue had done an awful lot of work, and others beside in the county to get us to that stage. You know, that we had a proud county venue, and it was heaving. It was heaving that night, and we'd gone to Omagh. We were absolute underdogs. And we managed to get out. That I remember. Thing that stands out for me. Paul McComiskey made his championship debut that day, I think, and it just a gem. Like Paul McComiskey, just an outstanding footballer, and he actually inspired us in that first match. And then in the second match, I'll never forget. I think it was Stevie Kearney had the ball at the end. I remember Stevie jumping up and down, and it was a cracking match, and that Tyrone team went on to win the All Ireland and won it well that year. It was very interesting. I remember Mickey Hart's demeanour after it, very interesting. The Tyrone fans were giving him Dixie after the game, and I remember being genuinely upset about it, you know, and thinking, and Mickey held his dignity, and I remember thinking at the time, do you know what? These boys mightn't just be out yet. So we actually won that game, and it was I think it was Andy Tohill was commentating on it and said that it had been the best game he'd seen in years. So the as I say, the pieces were in place. That was a good side that year, and then 2009 we got into the All Ireland under-21 final, and we're very, very unlucky. Very unlucky again. Pete was leading the charge with that team, and Conor McGinn played that day and played very well. And you know, and I look at that. So that was actually 2009. They came back into that squad in 2009 after the under-21s, and we got knocked out in the first round of the championship. And then down in Wicklow, we were beaten that day, and you know, again, sometimes if I'm critical, sometimes it's always blame the manager. Blame the manager. You know, nobody looked at the work that Ross had done, obviously, to get them to that stage. And that's probably a criticism I have in this county. That's blame the manager ethos. So in 2010, James came in. James, great way about him. Great fella, great character. And again, people wanted to play for him. So all the ducks seemed to be in a row. And that day, I just think there was a couple of instances that day where we didn't get the rub of the green. And I think Cork were on the rack, got a lucky free, and then, you know, they sort of got themselves in a position whereby it seemed unassailable, and then we clawed them back, and we damn near won it, you know. So very, very disappointed, because that was a very, very strong team. And the interesting thing, the interesting team in that, people talk about flair and talk about big men, etc. I think the down forward line there, the exception of Benny, and I suppose you had Benny and you had John Clark and boys like that, but you had a lot of small men on that team. You know, they won't like me calling them small men, but they were people who weren't 6 footers, and we had a number of them that day. And
just on 6 footers, Eddie, like, did you get the phone call about Ambrose a couple of weeks then before? You know, whenever.
I'll be honest with you, obviously, John, you would know, I wouldn't, from a confidentiality point of view, I wouldn't go into any specific details, but if you're looking specifically about a player who was a loss, there's no point in crying over spilt milk, because he was a loss. Mm-hmm. Was he a loss because of the player that came in? It was Pete Fitzpatrick who came in indirectly, and tell you what, some player to replace a midfielder with, we all know what a brilliant footballer Pete Fitzpatrick is. And Pete came in and did very, very well that day. But it was the fact you could have, if Ambrose had been fit to start, then you would also had Pete in the frame. Yes. And you know, so that's where I suppose we struggled in terms of having a situation of big men around the middle. You were taking one of your big men out, and Ambrose wasn't. I mean, Ambrose was the captain, and again, typical of the type of character you're looking for in a county footballer. Low maintenance, no hassle, loved playing for his county. Obviously, the genes were there with his dad. You know, just good people who loved the game. And I was caught. Look, that's one of my disappointments more than anything else that year, that Ambrose didn't get to play in that All-Ireland final. Not just because I think he would have got us over the line. Yeah. But because just for himself, he contributed so much and was very unlucky with injuries, but still playing, still a smile on his face. Right, and did the same. Yeah.
I suppose it was very quiet for you for the lead up to the final. I suppose there was nobody torching you for.
Tell you what, there was no twinges in the hamstring. You know, I look back at it. There was one of the team actually in '91. He laughed at this. I'll not mention his name, but I remember when he was playing, and he would have played with me back in the day, you know, at school and uni and that. But they used to tease him that there was always a twinge in his hamstring. There was no twinges in the hamstring coming up to 2 weeks before a final.
Eddie, what's the hopes for you know, Down football now? You've stepped away from it. You've been involved in it so heavily throughout the years. You know, where do you think Down can get to in the short term and in the long term?
I think in order to get to places in the long term, you know, you have to accept you might get success in the short term, but it can't be the be all and the end all. And one of my biggest gripes in Down is, if you look at it, John, you know that yourself, you know, that there is a link between underage success and senior success, you know, and I suppose in Saul, we've experienced that. Boys are used to playing AA football at underage, and you know, it was tough doing that. Now, you had to take some beatings and that, but if you actually have people used to playing at a high standard at underage, that's what sets the tone, sets the culture. But what we haven't Down is we presume that Down's going to win All Ireland every year. Like, you know, in 2010, the stars aligned. We've people involved in development squads and coaching and going back to basics and coming through, and we've good quality men putting their hands up to be involved in management teams. And
fair play to Pat Cunningham, you know, it's a big undertaking, and you know, probably the right decision, Eddie, you know, for Pat to get the nod. You know, I think you know, he's done his time with the development squads and that, and he's got his time now to develop at under 17 level. So congratulations to him, and I wish him all the best on his new post.
I would agree, and I look at that. I look at that situation. That's something whereby you put these managers in post and you give them 100%, and you put the resources, and I think you got to trust the management, you got to trust the county board, and then progress from there. And I think we're lucky insofar as I know with Connor and the boys in under 21, there's a good future ahead. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important that we put resources into underage, as well as at the same time putting resources into seniors. But you just have to realise, you could all the stars could align like it did with Cavan this year, to be fair, that they could align and you could get a good run. But what I want to see in Down, I want to see Down sustainably at the top table. I think that we're a proud county. I think that, the Ballykilner development will be a big part of it. I think one of the big success stories this year was Ronan Sheehan and the hurlers, and Ronan has the boys playing very, very well. And I know a lot of the hurling fraternity and again would have helped out medically over the years. And often think of it was great to see the success this year for the hurlers. But I often think of you look at Kilkenny, and people talk about Dublin, and then they say, "Oh, look at Kilkenny." Like Kilkenny don't field the football team, mm-hmm. And yet Down, a county with probably a smaller GAA playing population than Kilkenny, fielded football and hurling. And I just think there's so many aspects of GAA aren't a level playing field. So the resources that Kilkenny would have put into football, they can put into hurling. And everybody's saying Kilkenny's playing. They're Inspiration's a great hurling county, but it's just not a level playing field. And you look at the Dublin scenario, I mean, people forget about Dublin. Like, Dublin always had those advantages. But where Dublin have the advantages now, is I think the work that the GPOs are doing in the clubs and changing cultures, etc., in the clubs. And I think that's the future. The things that I would love to see over the next few years and Down is that every club has floodlit facilities, so they're playing for long period and training in the winter and that. And the other thing for me is that we create employment. And I think post-COVID, one of the big things is the GAA has an opportunity there to create employment. And if you look at the good work, yourself, John, we're very grateful to you. We're very grateful to Ronan for, yourselves coming down and coaching. And you've done it as well over the years in your own club, etc. And coaches, quality coaches, bring clubs to a different level. I have to say that we unfortunately haven't been in a position to have a homegrown coach. Now, we were blessed with Donny Ritchie, who was involved a couple of years, and Donny, very dedicated player, great footballer, came in and was inspirational, to be honest, and a great lad. And then you look back, but I look at Cathal Murray, PJ McGee, Cathal was back again, then likes yourself, Ronan, as you know, Ronan's been with us for 4 years and can't speak highly enough of him, really can't. We all know that. He's just very professional and well liked, right the way throughout the county. Very, very good at what he does. So I just see a situation where when I think the likes of what you boys bring to clubs, I just think that's the way to go. You've got to, in this post-COVID era, you've got to get people out exercising outdoors. So people that are coaches or personal trainers are going to be the success of getting us out of here. We have to be in a situation whereby people put more emphasis on their health. And it's not just about the physical health, it's about mental health, it's about socialization, it's about getting outdoors, it's getting into the fresh open air. And there's an awful lot of learning points from COVID. And I think one of my criticisms overall in terms of the way COVID has been dealt with, the actual effect of the virus is trumping everything else. And to me, the effects of restrictions cannot be underestimated. If we have people that if there's issues around employment going forward, if there's issues around businesses going to ground, local businesses going to ground, the economy under pressure, that will have more of an impact on health. There's no question about that. I have to say, we've benefited very, very much from getting, people say about coaches from not your own club, an outside coach just brings a different perspective.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a series now, Eddie, with the podcast now, Coach's Corner, and we're going to be bringing on boys who maybe not even from a GAA background, but just I think there's an upskill to coaches now. Like, sky's the limit. Really, like COVID has given you the chance to research, to do your homework, to think of new things, and and there's a wealth of information now. So coaching should be better throughout, even at underage level, like under sixes right up to senior level. And if it takes outside expertise, then so be it.
Well, you look at that. We have these are the realities that really. I would have trained and coached Saul many years ago at senior level, and since then we've nearly found it impossible to get internal people to coach the senior team. And whereas it seems, is that a crisis? Well, I look at, if we had an internal coach, would we had PJ McGee coming and imparting his knowledge and his culture and the ethos and the inspiration that he's provided. So I'm sold on it, I have to say. I think that it's a very positive influence, and I'm not just saying this to you, John, but
I still want the next year, Eddie. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, look, well, I tell you, I've been inspired and I've enjoyed it, and nobody can tell me. I just don't think the insular way of looking at things is the way forward. I think we have to widen our horizons, and you look at Kilcoo. I mean, Kilcoo's the gold standard, Kilcoo, and I have a lot of friends in Kilcoo, and I would have always, I suppose we always would have had a link with Kilcoo back. It was similar type of clubs in many ways. I think back years ago, Kilcoo, people would have looked down on Kilcoo and looked down on Saul when we were down Division 3 and in our case Division 4. And Kilcoo now, they do things right. But they look for outside inspiration and outside ideas, and I don't fault them for that. I look at, they had Jim McCorry in, and you would know Jim well. Jim's just an absolute gem in my opinion. Just the way he conducts himself. Although I didn't want to see him do well at Armagh, to be fair, but I'm joking. He's a great fella and a great way about him, and so he, I suppose, in many ways was the person that maybe lit the fire. And that's wrong, letting out the fire. There's always a fire lit in Kilcoo, and it was where he actually got on the stage and took them to that first title in 2009, and you look what's happened since. So if anybody is aware, what's that?
Do you think longevity's been a thing as well? They've only had 3 managers inside, what is it, the past,
couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
Again, they're very open to new ideas, and they had the link. They probably, I would say, that Brian McIver, Brian was very, very important in 2010. With Down, again, great character, great way about him, very knowledgeable football man. And Kilcoo actually tapped into that and asked that, and then that's the reason why his son Paul had come on, I would imagine, in Kilcoo. And then more recently, Mickey Moore, who again, a great, I think people like, you're bringing boys like Mickey Moore and Conleth Gilligan down from Derry. You're not going far wrong. Good people. And I was disappointed Kilcoo didn't get over the line last year in terms of the All-Ireland. And I think, ironically, their team last in the 2020 championship was probably even stronger again in many ways. They had a couple of boys back from injury, so I'm sure they still have their eye on the big prize. And I think they've conducted themselves very well in terms of representing Down, in Ulster and beyond. And it's nice to see.
You might get your wish. You might get to play against them next year now.
Be lovely, it really would. I have to say, we played them at underage, and we always would, I liked about Kilcoo, they'd give you everything on the field, then shake hands after. That's it, done. And that's going back. Look, I'm just saying, that's going back 40 years in my experience, and And I suppose they maybe have a wee bit of respect that we're maybe, you know, coming from a similar background, you know, rural club, etc. And you know, that's maybe why. Maybe, look, I may be talking too soon. We always seem to get on reasonably well with it, as we do most clubs. Well, no.
I'll play this back. There'll be a rat or something.
Most clubs. But it's funny, like how you look at clubs around you, and you look at it and how you have a genuine affection for other clubs. You know, I look at our neighbours. They'll not like me saying this, but Cleef, I played a bit of hurling with Cleef. Great club, Cleef. You know, I lived in Ardglass up until a few years ago, and again, great GAA people around there, like Sir Paul O'Shea and boys like that. You know, great people. So there's and dare I say, even in the RGU, you know, I have a few friends too. We'll keep that onto the radar. You know, but they're again great people. We're all the same. At the end of the day, we're all the same. You know, and I always remember back, and it's a good story. You'll know from the golf. You know, Cormac Sharvin.
Mm-hmm.
Cormac, obviously a professional golfer, great lad. Was a great actual hurler and footballer back in the day. And he actually lived in Saul Parish, but the Sharvin family would have been steeped in Cleef, you know, and very much the one of the big families in Cleef, and great people. Rory Sharvin was in the team in '94, in the Down team in '94. So what do you call it? Cormac anyway was playing underage in Cleef, and he would have gone out. He was living in Saul. He would have gone out with his friends to kick about. You know, and we had a training session, and I had said, just join. I didn't know him. Like I says, just join in there, and he was outstanding. Like, and I only found out several years later, his dad, Lorne, I met him, and he was Columban's 70th birthday party or whatever, and he was telling me the story. He says, "Wait till I tell you." I says, "You know, your Cormac wasn't a bad footballer." He says, "I know, but wait till I tell you a story." He says he came home one time. About 15 years ago, he was only a young fella, and he'd been out with the boys. He was kicking out in Saul, and he joined the training session. He says, "Dad, I was out there and I actually went out and it was training session with the boys, and I joined in." And he says, "I really enjoyed it." He says, he says, "I really enjoyed it. I think I'll join Saul next year." And Laurie says, "My dear son, just sit down. I need to tell you a very long story." That won't be happening. So he could have been playing for us, but he chose to go down the path of Rory McIlroy and the professional golfer. So he could have been a Down player back in the day, you know. But it was the fact that, yeah, you know, there's certain things that we'll never cross the line on.
That's it. And I suppose the last bit is the fellas who, you know, got so close to Saul, but just didn't get over the line. I'm thinking the likes of Kingo and Vinter and them boys, you know, that just missed out. And, you know, speaking to them after the victory and all that, it was a bittersweet, maybe, you know.
I'll be honest with you. You know, I look at it. You mentioned two names there, and there's a number of other ones. You would have met JP there as well. And I suppose when I was still playing, I would have been player manager, and I would have managed them boys. I don't think I'd played with Kingo. Kingo would kill me if I was thinking still playing when he was, but certainly Vinter and JP and just a group of those lads. And you know, Kingo was just and you weren't involved at that stage, but we had a very, very tough playoff match against Savile last year. And you know, it was up in Castlewellan, and we were getting beaten by 8 points at half time, and you know, it was a wet day, and it was very difficult. It had been a very difficult year for us, as you know. It was tough, you know. And we at half time, Kingo being Kingo, you know, he just knew we were under pressure, and all of a sudden, having retired, he came back and he put his shoulder to the wheel, and management made the decision at half time to change things up, and they brought Kingo in the fullback, and they brought on a couple of the younger players, only 17-year-old, two 17-year-old lads. They know who they are, great lads. Our Aidan, that's Philly Dorn. But anyway, the two boys were there, and it was the young and the old. So it was, and we were 8 points down. And I'm not saying, look, I would say everybody was inspirational there. And you know, I look after half time, Kieran bagged an early goal, and you know, with boys like, I'm talking about them all, like, you know, that they were actually found another gear, the tackled, chased boys down, and you know, come back and won the game from 8 points down, a wet winter day in a very heavy Castlewellan pitch. And I just thought that Kingo was just epitomised him, you know, again, that player who just wanted to play for the blue and gold jersey. And he was one fella, and Paddy O'Rourke won't thank me for this, like, but Kingo was a boy slipped through the net, like, county wise, you know. And I remember he was playing in under 21s. He went for a trial, and Paddy told him he wasn't big enough. And you would know Kingo now, like, Kingo's a big player, big physical player. And the view at that stage was, you know, what did an East Down player have to do to get onto the county, you know, and it's probably unfair both ways, but there was a lot of frustration there. Players like Kingo, Donny Ritchie's another one, you know, boys like that, you know, probably should have got a chance to play county football. JP Burke's another one. And those were boys that I suppose I would have managed and had a particular affiliation towards. And those lads, to see those lads down the barn after the final, and just sharing the joy and feeling very much part of it. And Kingo remains an inspiration in the club, definitely. Just really a strong player, a physical player, but no nonsense, just a great way about him, great demeanour. And I think about that, and I think of people that I managed. I think of the likes of the Piers, the McGraths, McKinleys, you know, like, I could go on all day, like, real good players. JP Burke would have actually coached and player managed for a period of time. Again, just a real, you would have played against JP, real top player, but great way about them. Good people, and it's the package, to be honest with you. You know, if we've had a couple of players, so very few, but players in Saul who didn't put their shoulder to the wheel, or maybe looking for, you know, always looking to play in the field, weren't prepared to do the training, and they held us back for years, like, they really did. And I look at other people, looking at the Burns, people like that, great people who just, I see them on that day after the final, and these were people who are maybe helping out with underage teams in our club at the minute, and they just felt so much part of it. And there is a frustration there. I think boys like Eddie Brady, Keenan's, boys like that, great lads. And there's a frustration there because those boys were very, very good footballers, and they didn't get the chance. And but the lesson, I think, with this group of players, and those players would actually admit that, whereas there maybe just wasn't enough committed players back in the day, this group is a tight, solid group.
Yeah.
And that's down to the culture that's been created over the last number of years, and the people involved. And you know, it's delightful to be involved, to be honest.
And I saw a man playing for Celtic as well. Obviously,
he's. I'll tell you what. You would know the Hazards. You know Jack. Jack's obviously our goalkeeper, and look, I've known the Hazards long, many's a year. Gary actually, Connor's dad was a brilliant basketball player, and actually on the other side, you know, the Kerr family, you would have known Richie Kerr, and then from Philly Trainer, that connection, all great athletic genes. And Connor could have turned himself to anything. And the story of Connor, that actually he played left back in soccer, believe it or not. He was definitely the best player of his age group. He was literally well over 6 foot at under 14, and he was a delightful left-footed player. We won an East Down A title at that stage, and Connor was in midfield, scored a couple of goals, scored a penalty. We were narrowly beaten that team by Burn in the County A final, and hurling team went on to win Ulster at the under 16 and minor level, I think. So Conor was amongst a number in that group. I know that there was Pierre, Sarah Lorcan, number of players there who, you know, were very strong and actually did very well. So Conor came in, and then at that, really under 14, he didn't play much because you had to specialise, and he was playing up in terms of, and he was in Celtic's books at that stage. And he went up to, actually, prior to that, I think it was the Floyd Cup. I'm not sure, is the Floyd Cup under 13, maybe, is it, John? I don't know, up there.
I played I think it was under 14 whenever I played.
Well, that was that year, and actually he went up as a left back, and that's the story. I think he went up as a left back, and he actually he played, and the goalkeeper got injured, and somebody says, "Our big Hazard plays the Gaelic, stick him in that," and that was where the story started, you know. So our loss is definitely Celtic's gain, but again, a great character, great family, great character. You know, he was a good sportsman. He was a good runner. He was a good sprinter, and good golfer. You know, he just was a natural.
Jack's fairly, like, Jack for me is the best player in the county, best goalkeeper in the county, bar none. Like, and I suppose he's taken over from Stevie Stratton as the main man in that.
You know, Stevie again, it just shows you, like, Stevie was just Stevie's a delight, like, a great fella, Stevie Stratton, brilliant goalkeeper. And he was playing short kickouts before Stephen Cluxon was playing short kickouts. Always remember Darren O'Hanlon from Ballymartin. Used to, back in the day, we had a ploy that Philly trainer Pampers, he was pacey for the kickouts. Stevie would look one way and pop it into space for Pampers for the other. And Darren O'Hanlon, who I didn't know, but he was a big player for Ballymartin at that stage, but I didn't know him personally. He was in the county team, and he says, "Hey, you're from Saul." He says, "Who's that wee ginger fucker won all your kickouts?" And it was Stevie, a combination between Stevie and Philly trainer, like, just timed it perfectly. Serious pace, still has, as you well know. Sure, yeah. He was brilliant in the final, like, coming on, and I'm not saying what age he is, but to be so inspirational. But Stevie was there. Jack, obviously, it's great to see Jack doing so well. Again, it's that story. He's not just a good footballer. He's a good lad. And interestingly, Conor, I remember going over. We went over. Conor was in the panel for the Champions League game against Bayern Munich, and we had gone over, and he came out to meet us after the game on that, and just for a fella that to reach a professional standard and to do what he did this year, I'll not make any comment on Neil Lennon not keeping him in goals, but he had easily the best record of any goalkeeper for Celtic this year. I just was very proud, I have to say, because he's a genuinely good lad and a good family. And I'd love to see him just getting a good run in the team, because I think if you have the capabilities, John, as you know, that you can produce it under pressure, the gun to your head and win a cup final, you know, it shows he's got those capabilities. And exactly. Look, I'm sure there's great days ahead for him, you know. But the interesting thing about him, and this is a challenge for the GAA too, that, you know, there's a lot of people. It's good to see people going over and making a go of it in professional sport. Should it be across the water or going to Australia? And as you know, Pierce got the call to go to Australia and that as well. And it's just delightful to see people getting the opportunity to do that. But you just wonder, do we look at the opportunities we give here at home? And I know that Conor, you know, he would still find it difficult when he comes back, even watching Saul matches. He misses it. He loves the game. It's a great game, and it's difficult. I'm sure it's difficult for him to watch it, because he knows he was the best player in the county at his age group, and you know, he said that clearly. Like, he misses it, and you just wonder, with players developing, do we look? I look back to Sean Kavanagh. In Tyrone, that Sean Kavanagh had the opportunity to go to Australia, but there was career opportunities opened up for him in Tyrone, and I look at Cathal McShane and that as well, and I'm delighted to see that. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah.
that if you're going to get people to stay, if they want to go to professional sport, that's brilliant. And, you know, it's great to see somebody get that opportunity. But I wonder, do we not say, well, look, here's a career path that you may choose, you know, and that seemed to work for Cal McShane and Sean Kavanagh. So that's maybe something going forward. And you know, so I look at like Caelan Mooney and Marty Clark and that, getting that opportunity. But you wonder, is there, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that we should go professional, but I just think it's
I know what you mean. Yeah, like the likes of, you know, as you said, Cal McShane there got the job with one of the sponsors for throwing out there. Like there should be, you know, they're putting in all the work and the effort, so why not? You know, why not reward them?
I think you've got to do that, and I don't suggest for 1 minute that it should go professional. I don't think that, never mind the ethos of the GAA, I don't think it would be a workable business model. But I do think that if I've no issue with players being looked after in terms of expenses and, you know, perks from that point of view. And I think the big thing is giving them a leg up a career ladder, you know. Yeah. And I just think in recent years, I look at what's happened in Dublin, you know, and I look at the doors that have been opened for Dublin footballers and how that has helped their longevity. So you wonder, why is Billy McMahon still going to the well and still being involved with the Dublin team when he's had many All-Ireland medals in the back pocket. But it's been Dublin's been good for Philly's career, and good luck to him. Absolutely, good luck to him. You know, an inspirational character. But I just think that going forward, it's about the employment thing I talked about, John. You know,
yes. So if we're any young fella from Saul now go to Eddie for a job, he'll get you to cut the grass around the house or something.
There's plenty of jobs, cutting my lawn, like painting the back wall, you know.
Eddie, thank you so much for coming on tonight. You know, we covered from A to Z there inside the hour there. Unbelievable. You know, and you know, I want to thank you as well, not only yourself but Saul as well. Tremendous people, and you know, really enjoyed the last year, and hopefully we'll get back to football soon. Do you envisage us getting back on the pitch?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Yeah, I think that the vaccination rollout has been brilliant. I really think it's the big success story. I think that if I'm being critical, there's at times with COVID, I totally agree with the lockdown restrictions and those things there, but I think that you have to realize that particularly the younger generation have made enormous sacrifices, and that I think we've got to put a lot of work into actually giving them opportunities going forward, because they've missed a year's opportunities. But that's all it is in reality. It's like 1 year out of your life, and that there will be absolutely many opportunities going forward, John. And post COVID, I think that the key thing is there's things that we can learn from COVID. I think we have to get back to sport. I think I look at the last 12 months, limited sport. People don't go to the cinema. They're not going to the pub. They're not going to the theatre. You know, all those good things in life that they haven't been able to do. I think it's not sufficient to say, right, we'll get back, but you're not allowed to do this, not allowed to do that. You have to work hard to ensure people have good things in life as well, and can enjoy those things. And I think post-COVID, I think the focus must be on not the negativity. Vaccination is the way out of this. Okay, and we can't say definitively, but any of the feedback from the vaccine so far has been incredibly positive, and I'm delighted to see that. But we're not just vaccinating people for the sake of it. We're vaccinating people to get back to normal life. And certainly what I would say is the people who have been bereaved by COVID or have suffered by COVID, you know, we all fear for them. You know, we all feel for them. It's been a very, very difficult year for some families, but also there's been difficult years for families, people that have died or have been ill, nothing to do with COVID, or maybe due to COVID restrictions. And sometimes they're the forgotten people. And I just think that, you know, what we've got to do is we've got to learn the lessons, get back to normality, enjoy the good things in life. And, you know, if everybody's trying to do reasonable restrictions, and everybody's smart going forward, we'll get there. If people lose the rag and get the run of themselves, and one thing about this virus is, if you're complacent about it, if you're cocky, if you think, no, we're safe enough to do that, it's a funny way of kicking you in the teeth. And,
it's unforgiving, yeah.
Yeah. So look, I think it's been a challenge. I think there's going to be so many positives coming out of it, and I'm convinced it's going to be good for the future. But let's learn the lessons, and let's learn what's important and what's not important, and get these younger generation, if they've missed out a year of opportunities, let's give them those opportunities and get them back
on the pitch. No, Eddie, thank you so much. And as I say, every time I say, people ask what club I'm with or anything, I say down Saul. Oh, how's the doc? Has he calmed down now? John Kennedy always tells me a story about you.
I could tell you plenty of stories about John Kennedy, but you know, that's for another day, John. You know, not on air. I'm joking. Like, no, look, the bottom line is that people know what we're all like that. And there's passionate people along the line, and we get carried away. That's the GAA. You just don't cross the line sometimes, and I think it's sometimes that and that's one disappointment I have to say over the years. It's been a massive positive journey for me so far in the GAA, absolutely. But people just need to put things into perspective, like, you know, and they need to realize that you know, it's not. It's, you give everything. You cross that line, you give everything. But it's a football match. I look at people I've toured it years ago in a football match or across the line. Still great friends with them. The only people that aren't great friends with me are people that don't know me, because if they knew me, they know I'm not as bad as I look along the sideline.
So you say.
Yeah.
Eddie, thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Pleasure, John. Pleasure, and thank you. Look, we always key into the Load of Balls podcast. It's great. It's very, very interesting, and I was good to my word, but don't ask me again. All right.
Super stuff.
John.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.